September 11th, 2001 began as just another day for American aviation. At any one time, about 5,000 aircraft aloft somewhere over the U.S. That morning, just before 8 o'clock, the four ill-fated 9/11 jetliners began to take off. American Airlines Flight 11 and United 175 departed from Boston. United 93 from Newark. American 77 from Dulles Airport outside Washington. All tracked on radar by the Federal Aviation Administration's air traffic control. It seems reasonable to believe that the skies from Washington, D.C. to New York City are among the best defended airspace in the entire United States, if not well beyond. From the White House to Andrews Air Force Base in Maryland and Langley in Virginia is just a couple of minutes flying time, with F-18 and F-16 fighter squadrons standing by, presumably in combat readiness. So the question is, why, on the morning of September the 11th, 2001, were none of those jet fighters in the sky over Washington and New York? For air traffic control, it all started to unfold at 14 minutes past 8 a.m. when American Flight 11 ignored an order to change altitude. Radio contact was lost, then the transponder signal. Flight 11 was off course, heading for New York. At 8:25, the controller reported hearing what he thought was the voice of a hijacker.
American 11, are you trying to call?
Nobody move. Everything is okay. If you try to make any move, you'll injure yourself and the airplane.
In a suspected emergency, the FAA is to contact the U.S. military, but recordings of radio communications on 9/11 show that didn't happen until just 8 minutes before American Flight 11 smashed into the North Tower at 8:46 a.m. Too late to get jet fighters in the air to stop.
Oh, it's just so out of the ordinary that it's completely implausible.
One of the most prolific critics of the official story, David Ray Griffin, has written several books analyzing the events of 9/11.
But let's say, for sake of argument, maybe they goofed up on the first one. The second one, after one World Trade Center building's already been hit, they're not going to be paying attention to Flight 175?
After the first crash, two F-15 fighters were scrambled from Massachusetts, airborne at 8:53 a.m., just as air traffic control was trying to contact United Flight 175, also off course, also bearing down on New York. But controllers didn't inform the military about that second suspected hijacking until 10 minutes later, 9:03, just as United 175 tore into the upper floors of the South Tower. Those F-15s were still in a holding pattern, awaiting orders, about 180 kilometers away.
They could have shot it out of the air. And particularly, if you've had one hijacked aircraft, apparently hijacked aircraft, crashing into a building, which could kill thousands of people. Sure, you would kill a few hundred people in a plane to bring it down, to prevent it from doing another attack. And absolutely, there was plenty of time they could have done that.
But again, it didn't happen. On 9/11, Barry Zwicker was a media commentator in Toronto, watching the carnage unfold on TV and wondering where the jet fighters were.
And so I'm saying, come on, U.S. Air Force. And I'm getting more and more agitated. And my wife says, for God's sake, calm down. And I say, wait a minute, this is impossible. This drama in the skies has gone on for almost 2 hours, and there's no U.S. Air Force. I said, this is impossible. That is when the penny dropped for me. So then
Today, Zwicker is the point man for 9/11 Truth in Canada.
You're looking at the face of a crime of mass murder and treachery, which is an unopposed military operation. So the outsiders don't know about it, and the insiders have all sorts of resources to carry it out.
They kept saying, how come no one's looking into this? How come no one's answering these questions? How come no one's investigating this? So we did. But we're going to keep him in the shot.
James Meggs is the editor-in-chief of Popular Mechanics, which for over a century has explained how things work, but nothing more daunting than 9/11 and questions like, where was the Air Force? It is hard for mere laymen to understand how the biggest, most extensive military in the world could not have got fighters in the air that morning faster than it did.
You know, it's really interesting. The conspiracy theorists, one of the very common mistakes they make is what I call the myth of hypercompetence. They've seen too many movies. They have this idea that the minute a plane goes off course, 3, fighter jets are scrambled on its tail within seconds. It doesn't actually work that way. They're assuming that the air defenses were competent to fight this kind of threat. They weren't. They should have been better prepared for it. They should have thought about it. They should have trained for it.
But they do train for it. That's all they train for.
Not for planes originating inside the U.S. The air defense system was set up for outside threats, planes or missiles or other things coming in from overseas.
Truthers believe it was all done to trigger invasions of Afghanistan and Iraq, and that popular mechanics was part of it.
Before our report was even out, we began to get threats, and people began to jump to the conclusion that we were part of some giant conspiracy. And within hours of the magazine hitting the streets, there were articles posted on all kinds of alternative websites, basically accusing us of being in the CIA and all these things. And the people who are asking those questions are imagining some kind of government conspiracy that would involve the entire staffs of a half-dozen airports, the entire CIA, U.S. military, the entire journalistic establishment. Hundreds of thousands of people would be keeping this secret today. How credible is that?
We've been pushed to the edge.
Every September 11th since 2001, the Truth Movement descends on New York City
Never trust the bush unless it's burning.
to share the latest intelligence and bolster morale.
Like I always say, if you cannot make a change, then support those people exposing the lies and exposing the liars.
On the American TV drama Rescue Me, actor Daniel Sunjata plays a New York firefighter, convinced the government was behind 9/11.
It's disrespectful to the memories.
No, dumbass. What's disrespectful is swallowing that spoon-fed Kool-Aid that's parading as the official account of 9/11 hook, line, and sinker. Like 99.9% of the people in this goddamn country. I am honoring the memories of those who were lost, okay? I'm honoring my brothers. My brothers by asking questions.
Sunjata says it was only while researching his role that he became a 9/11 truth activist.
Where the cognitive dissonance comes from people who just can't even entertain the possibility that that depth of betrayal, that their government, that their own government, not the entire government, but a criminal faction within it, could have been responsible for murdering American civilians in order to advance a geostrategic agenda.
And Craig Ranke has come from California to present findings about what he says really caused the death and destruction at the Pentagon on the morning of 9/11.
The independent eyewitnesses on the scene saw what happened, and since there's no released live footage of the Pentagon attack, they're the only ones who know what really happened on that day.
Questions remain because for all the security cameras trained on American Defense Headquarters, the visual record of the 9/11 attack is virtually non-existent. The Pentagon has only released a few frames of video, grainy and hard to make out, until the explosion.
The eyewitnesses all illustrated these flight paths, and this is a
Ranke argues that given eyewitness testimony about the path of the plane's approach, it's impossible for American Flight 77 to have hit the Pentagon at all.
We feel the best working hypothesis, and in fact the only logical alternative and choice here, is that the damage was caused covertly and implemented covertly from within with pre-planted explosives.
So many conspiracy theories, so little time. When we come back, one of the most intriguing theories.
I'm on a plane that's been hijacked. I'm on a plane.
That all the phone calls from the planes that morning were false.
I love you. Bye.
I have to say, I'm sorry, but that call was fake too.